morning, Hamilton. Welcome back to another version of Virtual Coffee with a Cop. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Klushman from our Crime Prevention Branch, and I have a special guest with me today. This is Detective Constable Phil Poirier with our Crimes Against Seniors Unit. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's my pleasure.
Awesome.
Today, we wanted to wrap up and do a little talk on Fraud Month. The month of March is always Fraud Month every year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we put lots of good information out about frauds and what to do with frauds. So we thought we'd do a little wrap up here and just remind everybody some of the important things to remember when dealing with a fraud, when you think you've been, the victim of a fraud and such. And we see lots of waves, lots of people going there, so that's good. If you have questions, Hamilton, please type them in, send them along, and I will do my best to try and answer those and see what Phil can answer for you here today. But Phil, let me ask you, I know fraud is a big subject. What's some of the first things somebody should be wary of?
Honestly, it sounds very cliche, very basic, but if it's too good to be true, it probably is. I can't express that more. Nobody's just going to hand you over money. Nobody's going to call you up out of the blue, and you're not going to come into a windfall if you didn't apply for something. That's the first message. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. So I know lots of people get text messages, emails, all these things promising huge things, right? Free gifts, all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
People should look at that and maybe take a step back and think about it for a minute, right?
Yeah, our message, regardless of our victims, we're asking them to stop. Stop, look, and listen. But the first thing is just to stop. There's no urgency. If you stop and you think about the information that you've received, think about the message that is being given to you. Once you stop and just take some time and analyze that message, you're going to learn pretty quick. There's going to be some red flags that go off, and you got to listen to those red flags. Stop, look around, do some research, and then listen. Just talk to people and listen to what they have to say. Many times those red flags are going to be thrown in your face, and you just got to listen to them. So just take your time, stop, look, and then just listen to people's advice.
Perfect. And I know from doing some of these in the past, they've always said, tell two people.
Oh, yeah.
When you have something that you think is too good to be true, tell two people and see what they think.
Yeah.
And use your peers, for example, right?
Absolutely.
As somebody to talk to about it and see, right?
Absolutely.
And what about speed? I know we always say slow down, take a step back to look at things, right?
Right.
A lot of these frauds, they prey on speed. They want you to react, right?
Absolutely.
So how do people do that?
So I'll use an example from my office in the Crimes Against Seniors Unit. We deal with all the frauds as well. Our victims are seniors. They're older clientele. They're older citizens in the community, and oftentimes they're approached with a sense of urgency. One of the big ones right now is grandparent scams. And that's where you typically get the phone call from somebody on the phone saying that, hey, listen, your loved one, your grandson, your son is in jail for a number of reasons, and we need money. As soon as they hear that, they get hooked, and they plant that hook, and the sense of urgency now gets planted into their brain, and they think and they feel in their heart that they have to act now, like right now. And they're directed to go get cash, and they give the bad guys all kinds of money out of fear, out of emotion. They're worried. They have a sentimental attachment to the person that they're trying to save. And I think that goes with every age. Once that sense of urgency sets in, they want to react quickly. Nobody wants their loved one in jail. Everybody wants to protect their family. And especially with seniors of a demographic that they're just a group of people that want to please, and they want to do it now, and they'll do whatever they have to. So my message is, just like you said, tell two people. I'm telling them, tell 20 people, tell 100 people. Go to your neighborhood, talk to your people at the grocery store, at your church, tell everybody. And I think that's how we're going to kind of put a dent in it, is just share it. Absolutely.
Perfect.
100%.
And now, let me ask you, if somebody thinks that they've been a victim of a fraud or are currently being targeted for a fraud, what should they do?
Well, the first thing I tell them, like, contact a family member. Get somebody involved that can advocate for you and help you through the system. Contact the police. There's no... a lot of times the people don't contact police because they're embarrassed or they're ashamed. They don't want to upset people that they lost this money, but you need to reach out. We can help. We can start an investigation. We can offer supports and victim services for these folks. And the little tiny bits of information they have may not feel important to them at that time, but anything such as a phone number, a license plate number, an accent, a voice on the phone, anything they can provide us, we can start piecing all these little pieces together. So they need to report it to the Hamilton Police Service. And we need to know about it, and we can help them.
Yeah, that's some great advice, right?
Absolutely.
And I think you touched on a few things there, and I know we always speak about this. It's don't be ashamed. It's nothing you did wrong, right?
Right.
These fraudsters out there who are trying to prey on people, they're professionals at what they do, and they're very good at it, right?
Very good.
So it's not something that you did wrong. It wasn't that necessarily you didn't do your right. They're very good at what they do, right?
Very good.
So try not to be ashamed. Try not to feel, that you did something wrong, and contact the authorities, because that's the way we stop people, right?
Absolutely.
We make arrests and we lay charges and we try and shut down these frauds.
Absolutely, yeah. The biggest, and I find, you're right, Jeff, the one thing that people tell me is the reason why they don't want to report it or haven't reported it is they're embarrassed and they're ashamed. They feel, I should have known, I should have known, I should have known. But honestly, unless you're in that seat taking that phone call, you don't know how you would react. So
Yeah.
there's never blame. We just, move forward and we try to catch them.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I know you mentioned grandparent scam. What are maybe some of the other important or frauds that are happening right now within the city of Hamilton?
Yeah, when we talk about the internet is such a great tool, and most people I know, including our seniors, are well in tune with the internet, and that kind of breeds a whole different world of scams and frauds. Some of the big ones on top of grandparent scams are the romance scam. All these dating sites and social media, all of them legitimate sites and great sites, but that just is a breeding ground for some bad people who contact victims and promise them the world. They're in love with them, they're going to meet them, they're going to come to Canada, they're overseas, but you need to send me lots of money. Like, that's a red flag. But that does happen a lot. A lot of investment scams we see on the rise with virtual currency, Bitcoin, all these different types of cryptocurrencies where people are contacted out of the blue. Your renewal for your antivirus is up. Log on to this site, create an account. I'll help you create an account. They take over the victim's computer. Next thing you know, money's being transferred out of their account. Those are some of the real common ones and the ones that we're seeing daily. Outside of the internet, it's the door-to-door pushy salespeople who come to the senior's house or anybody's house and lead them down the garden path of believing that they need a water heater or a furnace or all these other appliances in the house that maybe the person can't afford, but somebody's telling them they need it, so they must need it, so they buy it. They don't have the money, so now they finance it. Well, that financing is now over several years, and next thing you know, the person is remortgaging their house, and then they finally report it to the police, and we're already behind the 8 ball before we get the report.
Yeah.
So those are some of the common ones that we're seeing quite a bit in our office and in the major fraud unit. We get hit with all of these all the time.
Yeah. And let me ask you, the internet has exploded in the last number of years, right? And I didn't have the internet when I was growing up.
I didn't
right?
think it was going to catch on.
And, it has. Is this a generational thing where people are taking advantage of people who may not have the greatest knowledge in electronics and cell phones and texting and email and this sort of thing?
I believe so. The internet, is a scary world, and it's a wealth of information, and there's parts of the internet that probably people don't even know about. And you know, people have to remember, everything that's on the internet, you put it on there, it's permanent. It can be searched, it's findable, and fraudsters have a great amount of time to research, and they find it. So I'm finding, to my surprise, I'm finding more and more seniors are relying on the internet more for many reasons, and especially over the pandemic in the last couple of years. People are at home. That's how we communicate. That's how we talk to our loved ones across seas. That's how we get pictures of our grandkids, playing at home. Their social clubs are all online now. Our banking is online. Our calendars are online. Everything we do is online. Even our watching, you don't just turn on a TV anymore and click your cable box, right? You're online streaming, right? So all of your streaming, everything we do is online pretty much. Yeah. Our phones are just as private as our homes now, and everybody uses them, from toddlers to seniors in a home.
Yeah, and I think for that demographic, right, that wasn't used to it, the one thing we want to remember is don't give out your passwords. Mm-hmm. Don't click on anything that you didn't ask for, right? A lot of times in your email box, you click on things, get your refund for this. Oh, your password's expired for that. Right. I get them myself all the time, so right? Your package is held at the border. Click here, and I got one this week like that. Click here to reset your account. Never click on anything, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the big thing we like to say is just take a second to think about it. Do you even have a Netflix account? I get that one all the time. I don't have a Netflix account, but I always get this text or email that says your Netflix account is frozen. Click here to unfreeze it. Right. And I don't have one, so I'm not going to click on it, right? By clicking on certain things, sometimes you're inadvertently giving access to your devices, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to make sure we're careful with, because when we look at our devices, what's on there? Passwords, banking info, all those things that you talked about, right?
Absolutely.
That we have there. So I think it's really important, and as time goes on, are you seeing a change in frauds to become more of electronic based?
Yes, yeah. And just because the fraudsters can access it from their office, they can sit somewhere comfy and cozy like this, and this is how they do their frauds all day long.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, absolutely. I say to people, change your passwords often, and don't make it a password that, is common knowledge. Make it something obscure that only you know, and then change it often, and don't share that password. You're right. And in these pop-up things you mentioned, it's very popular too, because they can make a website look legitimate. You could get, I'm just going to use RBC, the Royal Bank of Canada, for no reason, just because it came to mind because we're sitting on blue here. So RBC, you could get an email with an RBC letterhead. Everything looks like it's from the RBC, but it's not. There's behind the scenes stuff that the bad guy has made look legitimate. And as soon as you start clicking, well, now you're clicking, opening up a gateway for the fraudster to gain your information.
Yeah, without your knowledge.
Very sneaky, right? And you would never know. Yeah. And to piggyback onto that, I ask people, check your bank accounts often. If you have online banking, which most of us do, because our bank cards are connected to our online accounts, check your balances on a regular basis. Because there's nothing worse than saying, well, I don't check, 3 months, and all the time, hundreds of dollars are gone from your account and you didn't know. If you check that regularly, you're going to put a stop to it, right?
Yeah,
I call it stop the bleeding. Cut your losses, stop it.
Yeah.
Put those measures in place to prevent it.
Yeah, for sure, right? And I think, when we look at the aging demographic, and we look at maybe elderly people, just to think about them, they probably don't access their bank account as often as a young person who's going to work and needing money for gas and food and parking. Right. And so it's very important for that group of people to look at their bank statements, right? Because
Absolutely.
they may have withdrawn cash when cash was king, at the beginning of a month, and they may not go back into that account for several months. So,
that's right. Yeah.
To get in there and teach them or remind yourself and make a note, these are things that I need to do.
That's good
right?
advice. Absolutely.
And what about saving passwords? I know a lot of people like to save their passwords. You said change it, but people like to, I hit save, so it makes it easy.
Yeah, it makes it easy. In certain accounts, and I know Google has things set up where you save your passwords and you can only access that, but I'm still kind of hesitant about that kind of practice, because once it's in the computer, like I said, that can be searched, and I'm sure the fraudsters have ways of infiltrating your computer to find out what all your passwords are for all of your different settings and accounts. I'm not as techie as I'd like to be, and I'm sure there's ways to really protect that, but I'm of a big belief of, you change your batteries and your smoke detector and your fire alarms and all that kind of stuff. Change your passwords regularly.
Yeah.
I don't, make it something that you can remember, but
For sure. And I would agree, don't hit the save button, right? I know it's easy and it stops you from remembering, but it also makes it easy for somebody else to maybe get into your device and subtract all those passwords. And once they have access to everything.
Everything.
So all your bank accounts, all your social media, all your email, right? And they can go in and they can cause a whole great amount of havoc, right?
Yeah, and they can take over your accounts, and we call those account takeovers, and those become messy.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's lots of security measures. It's just like, we never used to lock our doors at one time.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Right now we lock our doors, our windows, we have alarms, we have cameras, we do everything to protect our house. So we now have to kind of take that mentality and focus it to our private settings on our computers and our devices.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that the fraud investigations or the world of fraud has developed or changed over time. And I don't know if a lot of people know that, right? In the past, a lot of frauds were carried out with paper and people asking and sending things. So the fraudsters may have been local.
Yep.
Right? And you talked about a fraudster being in an office somewhere, and I think that's something that people may not quite understand.
Right.
When you're getting these emails or these pop-ups or these links, that person who's trying to defraud you may be in another country.
Absolutely.
Halfway across the world.
Yeah.
And how does that affect your investigations? How's that changed?
Well, it makes it challenging, but we still start, from the ground up. We don't take everything at face value. We've learned that phone numbers could look like a local phone number, but I can make my phone number look like it's from anywhere in the world and still call you from my phone. We have some amazing investigators that help us out with the technology in our tech crime unit and our all of those units there. The word is slipping my mind. Or tech crime and cyber crime. Sorry, we have some great cyber crime folks that help us out, and some very smart investigators, and we can take those tidbits of technical information and we can start tracing and following the money. And there's behind the scenes things that, just like a typical crime, we're taught when we're young officers that there's always a trail. There's always breadcrumbs everywhere, right? Every time you walk into a scene, right, we're taught from recruits, don't contaminate the scene. Well, we're finding that in the fraud world, as they're getting more complex, they're also leaving breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. And we can take those breadcrumbs and we're learning and we're catching up and sometimes surpassing. So we do have some challenges, but we also have some avenues that we can take. So it is challenging especially when there's issues with crossing borders and provincial borders and to different countries. There's some, red tape and some things that we have to go through, but that's just a challenge. That's we can get through that.
Yeah, that doesn't mean
we don't stop.
The investigation stops,
no,
right? And I think
not.
a lot of people might think that, right? Well, I don't want to report this because it's probably somebody in another country or something, and that makes it difficult, right? But that doesn't mean the investigation stops, right? You do joint work with other police departments, and I'm sure other countries, and there must be some sort of fraud group that you belong to, right? That works internationally.
Yeah, we have all kinds of working groups with other law enforcement agencies, advocacy groups in different provinces, different services. We have procedures for different countries, and we share information. None of us like frauds. We all have the same goal in mind, regardless of where the victim is. We want to stop it, and we want to get that victim's money back. at the end of the day, we all have the same thing in mind. So we do work well with other services, other provinces, other agencies, and other countries. And
yeah, it's a common goal, right? If somebody's committing a fraud here in Hamilton, they're probably committing frauds elsewhere, right? So it's in everybody's best interest.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
I mean, it's nice to hear that, it doesn't just sit here. We have a wide depth of knowledge from the units at Hamilton Police and units at other police services.
Absolutely.
Throughout
Yep.
Canada and abroad even.
yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So Phil, if you were going to leave the city with some thoughts or something to remember, what would that be?
Leaving the city with some thoughts to remember.
That's something about fraud, right? What's we talked about a bunch of things here. What's some of the most important things that somebody should think about or do in regards to fraud?
Yeah, I would honestly say protect yourself, and then don't be afraid to share information. When I say protect yourself, and that includes your family members. So, I mean, the messages that I bring home, I share with my loved ones, my neighbors, my community. I ask people to share with their loved ones, their neighbors, their communities, and take every option. It may take time and it may be inconvenient, but take those steps to protect yourself. Collectively, we need to do this as a team. I can't just go out there and look for frauds, right? I'm sure they're happening under our nose and we don't know about it. So just be diligent, protect yourself, and share the information with us so we can get to the bottom of it.
Start the conversation.
Absolutely.
So we can find a way around it. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Phil, I want to thank you for coming today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It was great to have you on the show here, and thank you, Hamilton. This is our first episode of 2022, and we are going to have some more episodes, so stay tuned for that, and look for an April episode where we're going to have communications come on and talk to you about what it's like to be a 911 operator. Phil, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank
you, Hamilton, and I'll see you next time. And as today, I don't have a producer, so you're going to see me walk off screen because now I have to work the electronics. Thanks again, Hamilton.